Hello and thank you for joining us. It's time for news. Enjoy with me, Jacqueline Saidi. First, the headlines. Pope Francis calls on the faithful to unite in prayers for peace intensified in this Holy Week. Government declares 537 missing persons dead. National Youth Network on Climate Change calls for speedy tabling of the Disaster Risk Management Bill. And in other news, 32 dead as tornadoes torment from Arkansas to Delaware in the United States. We have these and more. Stay with us. The Holy Father Pope Francis has urged the faithful to unite themselves in prayer, which will be more intense during the days of Holy Week with humanitarian aiders around the world. Speaking during the Sunday Andros, the Pope greeted all that were present from Rome and around the world for the Palm Sunday celebration. He then asked everyone to unite in prayers for peace, remembering Ukraine in particular. The Holy Father further thanks everyone for their prayers during these days, saying that it makes a difference even though we cannot see it. We have a Vatican News report being read by Tandiwe Mzumara.
At the conclusion of Palm Sunday celebration in St. Peter's Square, before leading the recitation of the Angel's Prayer, Pope Francis offered his greetings to all those present coming from near and far. The Pope offered his blessing to a peace caravan that left Italy for Ukraine in recent days to bring humanitarian necessities. Associations involved include the FOCSIV, Pro Civitate Christiana, Pax Christi, and other associations. The solidarity marks a sign of the closeness of the people of Italy to the battered people of Ukraine. They record that today they're offering olive branches, symbols of the peace of Christ. As Holy Week begins, the Pope invited everyone to live this time as the tradition of the holy, faithful people of God teaches us, which means accompanying the Lord Jesus with faith and love. He concluded by inviting everyone to learn from our Mother, the Virgin Mary, who followed her Son Jesus with the closeness of her heart and one soul with him.
Nearly 3 weeks after Tropical Cyclone Freddy hit the country, Department of Disaster Management Affairs DOTMA says it has lost hope and has declared the missing 537 persons dead. DOTMA Chief Charles Kalemba said this when he received a 120 million kwacha donation on Monday from Malawi's head of state, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, towards the flood response program at Kamuzu Palace in Lilongwe. Kalemba said as of Monday, 676 people had died and 537 were still missing. We have more on this report by Hilbert Kadanda.
DOTMA Commissioner Charles Kalemba expressed fear that after 17 days of searching, chances of finding the missing persons alive are slim. He, however, said Malawi has lost over 1,000 people to the devastating Cyclone Freddy.
In terms of people affected, which is mostly in various sectors, the total number of people is 2.5 million people affected. We have, as of now, recorded 676 deaths and 537 people missing. And as I said in another press briefing, those who are missing, it's very, we would not think that we will find them after this number of days.
Speaking during the ceremony, Chakwera described the effects of Cyclone Freddy as the worst in the history of floods in Malawi. He said most survivors whose properties were damaged are living in pieces. He said most survivors whose properties were damaged are living in pieces.
And it is so devastating that any recovery or reconstruction will require that we all work together to move toward a future that is more prepared for the climate shocks we will undoubtedly face going forward. As you know, last month I launched Operation Tigranimanja as a mechanism for building a nationwide coalition of organizations, companies, individuals, and government agencies committed to working together to bring relief to those that have been adversely affected by the disaster that hit us.
In an interview, Presidential Charity Initiative Committee Chairperson Vizenge Kumwenda, he said the fund was among the 270 million kwacha, which it raised through the Presidential Charity Golf Tournament last year. He said Chakwera seeks to reach out to flood victims and bail out needy university students with the initiative.
Such that there are a lot of people that are displaced, have got nowhere to stay, don't know where the next meal is going to come from, they have got no shelter, so on and so forth. Therefore, this donation that the state president has made of 120 million kwacha will make a big difference. It will not cover everything, but definitely there will be lives that will benefit from this, that will make that the donation will make a difference.
According to Dodma, about 2.3 million people in the 13 affected councils have lost their crops and livestock, as well as 63 healthy facilities have been affected. Blantyre is the most affected district, with 434,586 people affected, followed by Mulanje with 362,135 people, Zomba with 322,938, Palombe with 258,557, Mangochi with 230,373, and Chiradzulu with 191,883 people. For Luntha News, in Lilongwe, I'm Helbert Katanda.
Member of Parliament for Majinga East, Esther Jolobala, has lamented on long distance to access courts, a thing which is affecting justice delivery in her constituency. Speaking today in Parliament, Jolobala said that some of the cases that happened in her constituency are cases to do with women and girls, but it is hard for justice to be delivered because the victims find it hard to report the cases due to long distance. She also said sometimes that the victims abandon the court cases because it becomes very difficult and expensive for them to go to Mtaja to access court services. She then suggested an introduction of mobile courts in her constituency, which she said will help to address the challenges. She explains.
Issues of early marriages, girls getting married at the young age, at the tender age, like 16, that is below 18. So women and the young people in my constituency, they are really struggling because they cannot manage to walk long distances, sometimes even cycling. It is not possible for them to do that, and they have been struggling to access justice. Sometimes they even don't want to continue with court cases because it becomes very difficult, almost very expensive for them to continue going to Mtaja. You know how courts operate. Sometimes they do adjourn cases for future days.
In his response, Minister of Justice Titus Mvaro said that lack of enough funds to construct more courts is one of the major setbacks in justice delivery, but he opted for allocation of enough funds to the sector so that people can easily access justice in various communities in the country. Hear this.
It's a very important sector. It cradles, it sees the governance issues. And so when we were doing budgeting, I was saying, and I'm still saying the same, that we need to give this sector sufficient funds. Access to justice is a part and parcel of the rule of law. And so if people can't get caught within a short distance, that is against the dictates of rule of law.
We apologize for that technical issue. Moving forward, communities from the area of Sab-Ta Matola in the Balaka district have described the mindset change enabler under the Malawi Vision 2063 as mind-opening, as most of the things that they have been taking for granted for the community's own good. This was said during a discussion at Balaka National Initiative for Civic Education Office held with representatives from different heads under Sab-Ta Matola on how communities should contribute in the development plan. Led by Sab-Ta Matola, the representatives said they are now ready to put their houses in order to help the country change, as they are now aware that change begins with each person and family. Remember, you're still watching news on Luntha television. Now, a reminder of the headlines. Pope Francis calls on the faithful to unite in prayers for peace intensified in this Holy Week. Government declares 537 missing persons dead. National Youth Network on Climate Change calls for speedy tabling of the Disaster Risk Management Bill. And in other news, 32 dead as tornadoes torment from Arkansas to Delaware in the United States. The National Youth Network on Climate Change has asked Parliament to table the Disaster Risk Management Bill as it makes provision for the prevention of disasters in Malawi and for disaster preparedness and disaster mitigation. Delivering a petition earlier today at Parliament building, NYNCC National Coordinator Dominic Nyasulu said the devastating effects of Cyclone Freddy, which has claimed lives of many in the country and damaged infrastructure, should be an eye-opener that the country is lagging behind in as far as disaster preparedness is concerned. He said the country has been focusing on disaster response through the Act of Parliament that was gazetted long ago, hence the need to table the bill. We have won this report by Bridget Manoka.
NYNCC noted that the old law, which is a 1991 act, looks at the response, not preparedness, risk management and hazard management, among other things, hence calling on the House to fast-track the enactment of the Disaster Risk Management Bill. Nyasulu said the country has not done enough in disaster preparedness of such hazards, despite warnings from the Department of Disaster Management Affairs and the Department of Climate Change and Meteorological Services, and it is sad that the bill is not appearing anywhere on the Parliament order paper. He went on to say that it is sad that despite all efforts by CSOs and development partners to lobby the government to enact the Disaster Risk Management Bill, years have passed and the bill has not found its way to Parliament.
Yeah, I think there are several demands, especially firstly is to making sure that this sitting of Parliament deliberate the bill, but also pass the bill to making sure that I think the 10-year climb come to an end. But also it's not only 10 years, then we need it also to making sure that we implement some of the measures, especially, for example, the allocation of the resources. Dodoma needs its vote, financial resources independently, so that some of the interventions should be able to address the current challenge that we're facing.
Receiving the petition, Chairperson of the Natural Resources and Climate Change Committee of Parliament, Werani Chilenga, assured NYNCC that the bill will be tabled and passed before Parliament rises on 14th April.
Following our own standing orders, it will be presented in Parliament at the rightful time. But I would like also to share their concerns. The bill has taken quite so long before coming to Parliament. Otherwise, if we had this bill as a law, some of the effects of Cyclone Freddy would have been minimized. However, I've been given assurance by the leader of the House on behalf of government that this bill will be tabled during this sitting of Parliament. So the youth should be assured that indeed this bill is going to be tabled together with the other important bills which government would like to bring on the table.
Among others, the bill proposes a shift from disaster response to a more comprehensive disaster risk management approach with deliberate and predictable investments in disaster risk reduction to mitigate the impacts of disasters. NYNCC believes that if the bill is enacted and enforced, the loss and damage caused by the current Cyclone Freddy would have been lessened. This is Bridget Manoka, for Luntha News in Lilongwe.
The Federation of Disability Organization in Malawi, FEDOMA, has reiterated the need to mainstream disability during natural disasters, saying persons with disabilities are the most affected people when natural disasters occur. According to FEDOMA Acting Executive Director Simon Monde, failure by government to adequately plan for or include persons with disability in their disaster management response activities is a situation that continues to cause severe inequities in access to immediate response as well as long-term recovery resources for people who have disabilities prior disasters and those who acquire a disability as a result of disasters. Monde made the remarks as he bemoaned over the several gaps that have been noted in government's response to tropical cyclone Freddy aftermaths, especially in ensuring that it is inclusive and responsive to needs of all people, including those with disabilities. We have a report by Tandiwe Mzumara.
Much as different populations may face similar risks of exposure to the negative effects of environmental and man-made disasters, their actual vulnerability is dependent on their socio-economic conditions, among other things. People with disabilities, on the other hand, are more disadvantaged, hence the Federation of Disability Organization in Malawi, FEDOMA, calling on authorities to ensure that rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts must not only be inclusive and responsive to the needs of all people, including persons with disabilities, but should include the participation of persons with disabilities to ensure that their needs and rights are respected. Whilst appreciating of the support being rendered, FEDOMA Acting Executive Director Simon Monde notes gaps in, among other things, accessible toilets.
It's important that the response program should take care of these aspects as well. And without doing that, the impact of the disaster itself, coupled with the health conditions of these persons with disabilities, it worsens the situation.
Monde also disclosed that currently they are working with Makoha to see what they can possibly do to help people with disabilities affected by the cyclone. Tropical Cyclone Freddy has killed over 600 people in Malawi, displaced over 20,000, and over 500 people are still missing. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, this is Tandiwe Mzumara.
In sports news, Super League of Malawi made a donation of 500 bags of assorted items worth about 19 million kwacha in support of Tropical Cyclone Freddy survivors. Speaking following the donation, Sulum President Fleetwood Haya thanked TNM Super League clubs and Nyasa Manufacturing Company, among others, for their contributions towards the initiative. Meanwhile, National Coaches Association, through their chairperson, Aubrey Nankoni, has asked well-wishers to donate to two of its members, McDonald Mtetemera and Enos Chatama, whose houses and properties were washed away by the cyclone in Luntha. He made the appeal after a low turnout and fundraising match for the cause between Kamuzu Barracks and Civil Service United yesterday at Champion Stadium. This is part of what Mr. Nankoni said.
The turnout was low. We were expecting that we can raise a lot of money. I cannot disclose how much we have raised, but due to weather, we had rains yesterday at Imponera the whole day, and the turnout was the crowd was just too small. And here again, the weather the same. But all the same, we need to praise the Lord for what we have managed to raise, and we are looking forward even to other donations whereby people can come in and just to help us, because this initiative was especially that we should raise funds to assist our coaches who had this cyclone Freddy, because of their properties and houses were blown off. We have another plan whereby actually it's open that those who are willing, who feel that they can assist us, they should come in. And we want also to thank the owner of this ground, Mr. Obredimba, and the owner of the ground, the stadium at Mponera, Mr. Kavina, for giving us these grounds. But anyway, things has not worked for us.
In international news, residents across a wide swath of the U.S. raced Sunday to assess the destruction from fierce storms that spawned possibly dozens of tornadoes from the south and the Midwest into the northeast, killing at least 32 people. The storms tore a path through the Arkansas capital and also collapsed the roof of a packed concert venue in Illinois, stunning people throughout the region with the scope of the damage. The number of deaths continue to grow until Sunday. We have a VOA report being read by Charity Chilanga.
Biden area declared broad areas of the country major disaster areas, making federal resources and financial aid available for recovery. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas, where at least 5 people were killed, already had declared a state of emergency and activated the National Guard. Confirmed or suspected tornadoes in 11 states destroyed homes and businesses, splintered trees, and laid waste to neighborhoods. The National Weather Service confirmed Sunday that a tornado was responsible for damage to several homes near Bridgeville, Delaware. One person was found dead inside a house heavily damaged by the storm Saturday night, Delaware State Police reported. It may take days to confirm all recent tornadoes. The dead included at least 9 in one Tennessee county, 5 in Indiana, and 4 in Illinois. Other deaths from the storms that hit Friday night into Saturday were reported in Alabama and Mississippi. Residents of Wine, Arkansas, a community of about 8,000 people 80 kilometers west of Memphis, Tennessee, woke Saturday to find the high school's roof shredded and its windows blown out. At least 4 people died.
Well, with that report, we conclude the news. Now, the headlines once again. Pope Francis calls on the faithful to unite in prayers for peace intensified in this Holy Week. Government declares 537 missing persons dead. National Youth Network on Climate Change calls for speedy tabling of the Disaster Risk Management Bill. And in other news, 32 dead as tornadoes torment from Arkansas to Delaware in the United States. My name is Jacqueline Saidi. Thank you very much for watching Luntha Television. Stay safe.